Hello, welcome back to part 12 of elementary logic. In this video, we will learn about traditional classification of propositions in logic, how proposition is classified traditionally, old way, in logic. This is as per the syllabus provided by Mumbai University for first year BA LLB students year 2024-25. Let's get into the topic. The traditional classification of propositions in logic. It is divided into two parts. One is categorical proposition and the second is conditional proposition. So let us look at the categorical proposition first. It is a statement. Proposition is a statement that affirms or denies a relationship between subject and predicate. So whatever is the relation between the subject and the predicate, if it is either affirmed or denied, then that is known as categorical proposition. Alright, let's look at the structure of a categorical proposition. So it consists of one subject, one predicate and one copula. Alright, the entity being talked about is the subject. So let's say Jack or Amit or whatever names are there, maybe name of a city or a country or whatever, India for example. These are subjects. This is the entity that is being talked about. Predicate represented by P is an attribute or the quality ascribed to the subject. So Jack is, say, tall for example, or a good boy or whatever. So Jack is tall. So Jack is the subject represented by S. Tall is its quality represented by P, predicate, and is copula, C-O-P-U-L-A. The verb that links the subject to the predicate. So is linking P and S together. Now copula is generally is or is not. Jack is tall, Jack is not tall. Students are running or students are not running, for example. Or students are quiet, students are not quiet. So is not, are not. Are is basically it represents copula. I hope this is clear. Let's look at few examples. All lawyers are professionals. So here lawyers is subject, are is copula, and professionals is the predicate. So this is basically are. So it is affirming. It is saying they are, and no criminals are honest. So this is negative. This is denying that criminals are not honest. No criminals are honest means criminals are not honest. So criminal is subject, are is copula, and honest is a quality which is the predicate. Now, what role does it play in logical reasoning? Categorical propositions form the foundation for syllogistic reasoning, where conclusions are drawn based on the relationship between the terms. Conclusion is drawn based on the relationship between the terms or the premises. So this is known as syllogistic logic or syllogistic reasoning. In syllogistic reasoning, there are two or more premises followed by a conclusion that leads to a conclusion, or basically a conclusion is drawn from a set of premises or the relationship between the premises. Okay, let's move on to the second part, which is the conditional proposition. A conditional proposition states a hypothetical relationship between two statements. Now what is hypothetical will become more clear when we look at examples. Hypothetical situations are basically those situations which have not occurred, which are thought about. And what is its structure? So a conditional proposition is made up of antecedent and a consequent. Antecedent is is represented by the word if. The if part of the proposition is known as antecedent, and the then part of the proposition is known as consequent. Alright, let's look at it and understand it much better through examples. If it rains, so if is the antecedent, then is the consequent. So if it rains, then the street will be wet. Now, this is a hypothetical situation. It has not rained. But if it does rain, then of course the street will get wet through by water, with water. Alright, let's look at the second example. Again, if antecedent, then is a consequent. If a person is innocent, then they cannot be punished. I hope this is also clear. Now let us look at the differences between the categorical propositions and the conditional proposition. Categorical proposition deals with direct relationships between the subject and the predicate, whereas conditional proposition expresses a dependent relationship, that is if and then, between two events or statement. Now moving on, how it is used in logical analysis. So conditional propositions are key in forming hypothetical reasoning, often used in legal arguments to establish causality or conditional obligations. Fourfold classification of categorical propositions. Categorical propositions are classified based on either the quantity or the quality. In quantity, we have universal quantity or a particular quantity. In quality, we have affirmative quality or a negative quality. Don't worry, this is very easy to understand. As we go ahead, I'll explain through the square chart, which will become very easy for understanding the whole concept. But at the same time, I would also like to stress that this is the most important part of the logic. So one has to pay attention and try to understand what I'm trying to say, or what we are going to learn right now. So let's begin. The categorical propositions have either a quantity or a quality. When we look at all the examples, it will become more and more simple. Don't worry about it. It's very simple process. The concept is very simple. Once you understand, you'll love this. So one is quantity. Quantity is divided into either universal or particular, and quality. It is either affirmative or negative. You don't even need to memorize any of this. This will come by natural once you understand the concept of this. So let's look at what is universal affirmative. Now universal affirmative is we represented by the letter A. Universal negative we represent by letter E. There is nothing special about this words, this letter A, E, I, O. There is nothing special about it, but it's just a concept. So just understand that if I say A, then it means it's universal affirmative. If I say E, it is universal negative. If I say I, it is particular affirmative, and if I say O, it is particular negative. These words these letters by themselves have no meaning except for that they are representative. Alright. Now first of all, we'll try to understand what is universal. Universal means it includes all the set, everything it includes. Universal. But then we have something called universal affirmative. Now universal affirmative is represented by the word all. Universal negative is represented by word no, meaning all birds have feather. Means everything which has feather, every living thing which has feather will be considered as a bird. So the word all includes the entire class of things that have feather. Now no is also universal. No birds, or for example, another example I'll give, no fish can fly. So when we say no fish can fly, again I'm I'm considering every fish in the world, everything that we know of a fish. No fish can fly, actually fly, not jump out of the water. There are some fishes which they say have wings, kind of, but that's not true flying. I'm talking about real flying in the air and staying in the air, like as a bird stays. So when I say no fish can fly, means no fish. Everything is considered in that. So that is universal. So universal negative and universal affirmative or positive. So first we'll just understand these two. So how do we say, what do we say in this, is that this is a constant syntax that we'll be utilizing. So all S, first we start with all is generalization, it is universal. S stands for subject, P stands for predicate, R stands for copula. So all S are P. We are just substituting the word S and P for subject and predicate. If you still didn't understand, put it in the comment section. Let me know. I'll try to make it more simpler in the next videos that I will come out with. I'll try and do that. I can't promise, but I'll try and do that. But this is still very simple. If you go through it, if you read it at least 2-3 times, you'll definitely understand. That I can say it with challenge. Alright, so all SRP, this is universal. We are talking about all. No SRP. Now we are saying no SRP. I already gave an example. No fish can fly. All sweets are sugary. Okay, all sweets are sugary. You can take n number of examples. So they have given examples also. All contracts are considered as agreements. All contracts are agreements. Whenever we get this kind of statement, we say that it is an A statement where the word all is used. And we also say that it is universal affirmative. Wherever we get a statement with the word no, then again it is universal, but it is negative. It is talking in negative sense. So here we are saying no minors are eligible to vote. So this is E proposition. E stands for universal negative. Alright, now let's move on to the third and the fourth together. Third and fourth are particular affirmative and particular negative. Affirmative, as I said, is positive, and negative, of course, is negative. So instead of saying positive, we say affirmative. We are affirming something. So in particular affirmative, particular basically stands with the word some. This is all, no, this is some, this is also some. But what is the difference between both of them? One is positive and one is negative. How it is negative? So we say some are and some are not. So when we say something is not, it is negative, and we say something is, we say it's positive. Something is positive, something is not is negative. But we are talking about some particular things, a set of things, not everything. So in the previous two, in the universal, we are talking about everything is included. But in I and O propositions, we are talking about a particular thing. A particular could be one or more than one, but not all. I hope this is clear. So let's look at the example of particular affirmative. Some laws are outdated. Means not all laws are outdated. If we had said all laws are outdated, that would have become universal affirmative. If we had said no laws are outdated, then it would have become universal negative, because we are using the word no. No laws are outdated. All laws are outdated. So each sentence, each statement can be utilized, changed to its corresponding propositions, to its other propositions of AE, IO. Alright, so in this we say some laws are outdated, and finally if you have to go to O proposition, that is particular negative, we say some laws are not outdated, or we say some citizens are not taxpayers. So now for each example, let's take each example and convert it to its different propositions. So what we'll do is we'll convert Alright, so what we'll do is we'll convert the first one, and you can repeat with me, or you can uh, go ahead one step ahead of me and say that out. So A means all contracts are agreements. Now if you want to convert the same example into E, what we will say is no contracts are agreement. Now if you want to convert the A into I, we will say some contracts are agreements. Whether it's true or false, we are not concerned with it right now. But we are just saying how to convert it. Alright. Now all contracts are agreements is a proposition. We'll convert it to O proposition. We'll say some contracts are not agreements. Alright. Now second part. No minors are eligible to vote. We have to convert this to A proposition. So we say all minors are eligible to vote. Some minors are eligible to vote. Some minors are not eligible to vote. The main words here are in A proposition, it is all and are, no and are, some and are, some and are not. These are the key words. Rest, this is subject, this is predicate. This is subject, this is predicate. And so on. Subject, predicate. Subject, predicate. Alright. I hope you have understood this. Let's move on. So now in this, what is quantity? So quantity is either this all is a quantity, no is a quantity, and what is the quality? Affirmation or negation. So are not. These are positive and negative. Even no is also, if we say no SRP, that is also a negative sentence because we are denying it. Okay, let's move on to the next one, logical relationships. Now if you see the proposition A and E, now this will be more clear when we look at the square chart, which I will show you in some time. So we build a square table, a square diagram of A, E, I, O. A and E are always contraries. Now both cannot be true. So if I am saying, see, we already know A stands for all and E stands for no. A stands for all, E stands for no. Now when I say all birds have feather and at the same time all birds, sorry, I can't type, so what I'll do is I'll just type it out here. Erase this out. So A stands for all and E proposition stands for no. Now if I say all birds can fly, so this is a proposition. And if I say no birds can fly, now either of one of them only can be true. Either A will be true or E will be true. So both cannot be true at the same time. If all birds can fly is true, if this is true, then this will become false. And if this is false, this will become true. So this is what it is trying to say. In contraries, A and E are contraries because both cannot be true. If all birds can fly, then we cannot at the same time say no birds can fly. So both cannot be true, but both can be false. Now why both can be false? We'll look at it. Example, all SRP versus no SRP. Of course, S is subject, P is predicate. So it's the same, the syntax is the same, the structure is the same. All S can, so all B can F, no B can F. So this is the same format, same structure. Alright, now we'll look at this later on, why both can be false. So it says both cannot be true, but both can be false. We'll cover this later on. But we do know that both cannot be true. Alright, this is very important. You have to remember these things. Why both cannot be true? I explained that if you take a proposition, you cannot use the e proposition in the same sentence for true values. Okay, what is subcontrararies? The relation of subcontrararies is between I and O. So we have this diagram which I'll show. So the diagram is made like this: A, E, I, O. So the relation between these two and these two, this is contrary relation. This is the relationship of contrararies, and subcontrararies relation is between I and O proposition. Okay, so what does it mean? It says that both cannot be false. So we already know A stands for all, E stands for no, I stands for some are, I stands for some are, O stands for some are not. Now, both cannot be false, but both can be true. So if, for example, if you take an example, if the same thing, some birds can fly, so can we say that at the same time, can we say some birds can not fly? Can both be true? So the answer is yes, both can be true. If some birds can fly, then there will be some birds which cannot fly. So we say that both the propositions can be true at the same time, but both cannot be false. But both can be true. Example, some S are P and some S are not P. It's the same format, same syntax. I hope you have understood this. Let's move on to the next one. Contradictions. Now, what is the relation between contradictions? So, contradiction relationships are the opposite relations: A and O relation, E and I relation. These are the contradiction relations. So, if I say all birds can fly, so we already know that. Let me just. So we know that this was A, and this was. You can repeat with me. This is E, A E. This is AEI, this is I relation, I proposition, and this is O proposition. So we have, if we say the relationship of contradiction, we are learning about contradictions now. So the relation of contradiction is between A and O, E and I. So if we say all birds can fly, we cannot say some birds cannot fly. This is opposite because they are contradicting each other. So if when someone says all birds can fly, and then can we also say some birds some birds cannot fly? No, we cannot say. So that is contradiction. So in this, what kind of relationships are there? So we'll see that. So if one is true, the other is false. Example, all S are P versus some S are not P. So once we look at the diagram, all birds can fly, some birds cannot fly. So if one is true, the other will be false. Whereas in a contrary, which we studied earlier, in contrary the relationship is between A and E, I and O. If one is true, if A is true, then E will be false. If I is true, O will be true. If I is true, O will be true. But both cannot be false here. Whereas on in the contrary relationship of A and E, both can be false, but both cannot be true. So this truth table, this may sound little confusing as of now, but when we look at the actual table, you will understand. But do clear your concept of what I'm teaching you right now. This has to be absolutely clear to you. If you have not got this, going ahead will not make any sense. So I would stress on clarifying this concept of AEIO. A stands for all, E stands for no, I stands for some is or are, and O stands for some is or some are not. Understand this very clearly. It's not that difficult. It's very, very simple. Just that once you get it, you'll never forget this. And you don't even have to memorize this. Because I don't believe in memorizing. Of course, economics, some questions, answers, English also, literature also will have to memorize. But in logic, there are certain words which we'll of course need to memorize, but not the concepts. All right. So some SRP versus no SRP, that is the contrary and subcontrary. So the relation between I and O is of subcontrary. And contradiction, as I said, if one is true, the other is false. Now, it is true for both A and O, E and I. That is, if A is true, O will be false. If E is true, I will be false, and vice versa. Subalternation. Subalternation is the relation between A and I, E and O. This is subalternation. I'm not able to write the full letters because I don't have a pen. I'm using a mouse to write here. So excuse me for a bad handwriting or delay in writing. Anyways, so that is subalternation is the relation between A and I proposition and E and O proposition. So the truth flows downwards, falsity flows upwards. Very important to understand. In subalternation, from A, if A is true, then I will be true, but not the reverse way around. So it says one is true, in subalternation the truth flows downwards, falsity flows upwards. Example, if all SRP is truth, all SRP means it's a proposition. Then some SRP is E proposition is also true, but the reverse is not correct. So the truth flows only one way, from A to E, that is A proposition to E proposition. Now I am able to understand this because I have already cleared my concept of AEIO, but I'm not sure how much of this I'll be able to pass it on to you, because in this you also have to sit and understand, not mug up, not memorize anything, because you have to just understand the concepts. It's actually not really speaking. Even I felt earlier very it to be difficult, but as I sat and tried to understand the nitty gritties of this, it became more and more clear. Now the concept is completely clear for me. And there is not like many concepts in this. That is, there's just these four propositions: A, E, I, O. A and E, the first on the top two, stand for universal. I and O at the bottom stands for particular. So particular positive, particular negative at the bottom, and at the top it is universal affirmative and universal negative. And then what is the relation between A and E? It is of contraries. What is the relationship between I and O? Subcontraries. What is the relationship between A and O? That is contradictory. What is the relationship between E and I? Again contradictory. What is the relationship between A and I? That is subalternation. What is the relationship between E and O? Again subalternation. So you will very easily understand this. Just have to sit with this for some time and not get bogged down, but try to absorb these things. It's very very simple. Again, I'm saying, earlier to me also it was difficult when I started learning this, because I don't want to criticize anybody, but we as students have to also put a lot of effort into understanding the concepts, because logic is all about concepts. Okay, enough of lecture. Let's move forward. All right. Now, application in legal arguments, how it is used. Because once we learn something, we should be able to use it also in our daily life. What is the use learning something and not able to actually put it into practical use? So now we'll see how this A, E, I, O propositions helps us in our uh, future. In our, when we become lawyers, we'll need to use these things in our practice. So universal propositions, which are A and E, are used to state general laws or principles. They say, example, all contracts must be in writing. So it is a universal proposition. Now, particular propositions, these are I and O. Whether positive or negative, it doesn't matter. Whether affirmative or negative, it doesn't matter. It is used to highlight exceptions or specific cases. Some agreements are not enforceable. So we are using some and are not. Tell me what type of proposition this is. I'll wait for 5 seconds. This is O proposition. Tell me what is this proposition. I'll wait for 5 seconds. This is A proposition. Now, let's look at the conditional propositions used to analyze hypothetical legal scenarios. So we have if. What was this? I'll wait for 5 seconds. Tell me what is if. If is antecedent. And then, what is then? Then is, wait for 5 seconds, consequent. So conditional propositions are used to analyze hypothetical legal scenarios. If a contract lacks consideration, then it is void. Now let us look at exam oriented questions and answers. Okay, what are the components of a categorical proposition? So these are subject, copula, and then predicate. He is running. He is running. What is this? I'll wait 2 seconds. Subject. What is this? Copula. What is this? Predicate. Running is a quality. It's indicating something. Alright, let's move on. So these are known as the components of categorical proposition. Provide an example of a universal negative proposition. Now, first of all, tell me what is universal and then negative. So universal negative would be which proposition? Is it A, E, I, O? I'll wait for 2 seconds. It is E proposition. Universal negative proposition. So it says no minors. E starts with no. No, S, R, P. I'll keep repeating this so it helps you also to get a hang of how to write E propositions, A propositions, I propositions, and O propositions. So no minors are eligible to vote. So minors is subject, R is the copula, and P stands for eligible to vote. So this is a E proposition. So this is an example of E proposition. You can, even if you don't know an example like this or can't recollect, you can simply write this also. No SRP, no SRP here. Alright, let's move on to explain the role of copula in a categorical proposition. So copula basically links what? The subject, this is the subject, and the predicate. It is linking subject and the predicate to express affirmation or denial. So we are saying no SRP, some SRP, some SR not P, all SRP, depending on the proposition. Either it is A, E, I, O. Alright, these questions can come either in fill in the blanks or true or false or short notes, even in the longer 13-mark question also. Going forward, after I complete the entire modules, 4 modules and their subtopics, I will be definitely taking up question and answers just to check my preparation also, how well prepared I am also. I hope I am also well prepared. Also, if I'm making some mistakes in terms of when I say something and I'm not saying it correctly, although I know what I'm saying, but I may use a wrong word in that place. So do correct me in that case. Okay, thank you. So let's move forward. Conditional propositions. What are the two parts of a conditional propositions? They are antecedents and consequent. I explained earlier what was antecedent. Tell me what is antecedent represented by and what is consequent represented by. So this is if, this is then. Alright. Provide an example of a legal conditional proposition. So this is one of the examples that we can give. If a person is found guilty, then they will be punished. Let's look at the fourfold classification. What is a universal affirmative proposition? A proposition that states all SRP. Tell me what type of proposition is it? It is A, E, I, O. It is a proposition because it says all. Okay, describe the relationship of contradictions between propositions. Now, contradictions are pairs where one is true and the other is false. Now tell me, between A, E, I, O, is this contradiction? I'll give you can say yes or no in your own mind. A and E, is it contradiction? No. Is E and O contradiction? No. Is I and O contradiction? No. Is A and I contradiction? No. So what is contradiction? A and O, E and I. These are contradictory propositions. Contradictions. So in contradictory propositions, we had mentioned that if A is true, then O will be false. If E is true, then I will be false. If A is false, then O will be true. If E is false, I will be true. Only one can be true and the other has to be false. Alright. What is the structure of a categorical propositions? Okay. So what is the structure of a categorical proposition? It consists of a subject, a copula and a predicate. Which type of proposition is if it rains? This is a conditional proposition because there is a if and then. Now what is if? Can you remember what is if? The word for if is antecedent. For then is consequent. Let's move forward. No lawyers are dishonest is an example of what? No stands for universal. So we have to, either it is A or it is B. Which one is it? Lawyers are dishonest. So It's saying lawyers are not honest, which is this answer, universal negative. Which of the following is a universal affirmative proposition? Now we know universal can be either all or no. Now we know that affirmative means all, as it could be either all or no. These two are not valid. These two are known as what? I'll wait for you. Tell me, what is this two? These are particulars. Particulars, particular affirmative and particular negative. So in this, affirmative is this one, universal affirmative. This is the correct answer. All S are P. No minors are eligible to vote is an example of what? No means negative, so it could be either this or this. And no minors are eligible. So no minors means negative universal. It's talking about negative universal. What does the copula in a categorical proposition do? So it links the subject and the predicate. Which proposition describes only some members of a category positively? Now we're talking about some. So some would mean particular. So these two are out. Some members of a category positively. So some are. Some are. So particular affirmative. Positively, no? So positively means affirmatively. So this is the answer. The relationship between some S are P and some S are not P is called which one? Is it contradiction? No. Is it subalternation? No. Is it contraries? No. It is subcontraries because it is at the bottom, E and O. A conditional proposition involves what? A conditional proposition involves, we already seen this, antecedent and consequent, that is if and then. If it rains, the road will get wet. The then part of a conditional proposition is called, this is also very simple, it is consequent. Which of the following is a conditional proposition? So again, conditional is very simple. If S, then P. If it rains, then whatever. I'll carry my umbrella. Conditional propositions are often expressed using which of the following phrases? It is if then. Conditional propositions are essential in analyzing what? They are utilized in analyzing hypothetical scenarios. Let's go with fill in the blanks. A categorical proposition consists of dash, dash and dash. So we know this. One is subject, predicate and copula. A conditional proposition is divided into dash and dash. Antecedent and consequent. If and then. Correct. All contracts are agreements is an example of dash proposition. All contracts are agreements. So this is universal and this is affirmative. Contradictions occur when one proposition is contradictory. So one is A and the other is O, or A and E, I and O. So they are opposite of each other. A, E, I, O. So they are called A and O or E and I. Contradictory occurs when one proposition, one has, the answer they wanted was, so one, of course one will be, if this is true then this will be false, if this is true then this will be false, and vice versa. This is false then true, if this is false then true, like that. Universal propositions describe dash statements about all members of a category. Describe what statements? General statements. Okay, because you say all or none or no. The relationship between some SRP and some SR not P is called subcontraries. Yes, subcontrary. Particular propositions focus on dash members of a category. Particular proposition focuses on some members of a category, specific members of a category. Correct. The if part of a conditional proposition is called as antecedent. The then part of a conditional proposition is called as consequent. The term some in a proposition indicates particularity. A categorical proposition consists of, this we have already covered. If you know, please answer this. I'm moving forward. The fourfold classification of categorical proposition includes, what are these? These are universal affirmative, universal negative, particular affirmative, particular negative. The relationship between all SRP, this is A proposition, and no SRP, this is E proposition, is called contrary or contraries. Particular propositions describe dash members, specific members of a category. I think we had already done this. The term some in a proposition indicates what? It indicates particularity. A conditional proposition consists of two parts, antecedent and consequent. The if part of a conditional proposition is called the antecedent. Conditional propositions are often used in legal reasoning to establish cause and effect relationships. A conditional proposition is hypothetical and can be expressed using the phrase if then. An example of a conditional proposition is dash, then the contract is void. If the agreement lacks consideration, correct. If the agreement lacks consideration, then the contract is void. Okay, let's go with true and false statements. We can do it together. Just have to say true or false. A categorical proposition always expresses a direct relationship between a subject and a predicate. True. All lawyers are professionals is an example of conditional proposition. No. This is an example of categorical proposition. If and then is the conditional proposition. Categorical propositions include antecedent and consequent. No. Conditional propositions include antecedent and precedent. The fourfold classification of categorical proposition is based on quantity and quality. Yes, this I already explained. The quantity is universal or particular, and quality is affirmative or negative. Some S are not P is an example of a universal negative proposition. Correct. True. Some S are not P is an example of universal. No, sorry, it is my bad. It is particular negative proposition. I just looked at negative and jumped to the conclusion that it is true. So it is particular negative proposition. A conditional proposition involves a hypothetical relation between two statements. True. The if part of a conditional proposition is called the consequent. False. Conditional propositions are used to express cause and effect relationships. Correct. True. If it rains, then the street will be wet is a universal affirmative. No, it's not a. If it rains, no, this is a conditional proposition. This is not a universal affirmative proposition. Conditional propositions always describe actual facts. No, categorical propositions describe actual facts. So we are completed this entire topic. The video became quite long of 50 minutes. These questions are designed to reinforce the understanding of the categorical and conditional propositions, their classifications and their applications in logic and reasoning, particularly in legal contexts. I hope this long video helped you understand the concept clearly. This is one of the most important videos that I can stress upon, although it has become long. But I would again say that if you miss this, if you don't understand this particular video, I don't think going forward you'll understand the other videos or the concepts that it talks about, because this is the most crucial part. Everything builds up upon this particular video. Thank you very much. If it was helpful, do consider sharing it with your friends so that they can also be benefited. If you benefited, maybe they will also benefit. I have benefited from my own videos, so I can say recommend it, please. Like it, share it, whatever you can do. Thank you very much for listening. Take care. Best of luck. Bye bye.